A 67-year-old woman named Olivia was standing in her kitchen early one morning, doing something she had done thousands of times before, making coffee. No warning, no pain, no dramatic buildup. Suddenly the mug slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Her left arm wouldn't respond. When she tried to call out to her husband, the words came out broken and tangled, as if her mouth no longer remembered how to speak. One side of her face began to droop. Margaret was having a stroke. But here's the part almost no one talks about, and the part that may save your life one day. Before the ambulance even turned onto her street, before medications, before scanners, before doctors touched her, Margaret did something shockingly simple. Something so counterintuitive that the emergency room physician later told her family it likely prevented permanent brain damage. She didn't take a pill. She didn't attempt CPR. She didn't panic. She changed her body position and controlled her breathing in a very specific way. What Margaret understood, and what most adults are never taught, is that the human body has a built-in emergency survival system. When activated correctly, it can help preserve blood flow to the brain during the most critical moments. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to explain exactly what she did and why it matters. Because here is a sobering fact. Every 40 seconds, someone in the United States suffers a stroke. But what rarely gets discussed is this. The first 3 minutes before paramedics arrive, before hospitals, before drugs or scans, often determine whether a person recovers or lives the rest of their life with permanent disability. Those first 3 minutes carry far more power than most people realize. Today, I want to break down 2 things every adult over 60 must understand. First, the early warning signals your body sends seconds before a stroke fully takes hold. And second, a positioning and breathing method supported by modern neurological and cardiovascular research that may help preserve brain blood flow while emergency help is on the way. This is not folklore. This is not internet advice. This does not replace emergency care. This is education, knowledge that can buy time when time is everything. But before we talk about what to do, you need to understand what is actually happening inside the brain during a stroke. Most people imagine a stroke as a sudden collapse. Lights out, instant catastrophe. That's not how it usually begins. A stroke often starts quietly, subtly, almost politely. Think of your brain like a massive city at night. Millions of lights powered by a constant flow of electricity. Every thought, every movement, every memory depends on blood delivering oxygen through extremely delicate pathways. Now imagine one of those pathways becomes partially blocked for just a few seconds. A small neighborhood goes dark. Sometimes the lights come back on. Doctors call this a transient ischemic attack, or TIA. Often dismissed as a mini stroke, but there is nothing mini about it. A TIA is your brain pulling the fire alarm. It is a warning that a larger stroke may be minutes or hours away. This is where the real danger lies. Most seniors ignore these signals. An arm suddenly feels heavy. A foot drags slightly. Words disappear mid-sentence. Balance feels off, then returns to normal. Because the symptoms fade, people brush them off. But inside the brain, the clock has already started ticking. They assume it was fatigue, dehydration, standing up too fast. But those are not random glitches. They are distress signals. The clot may have formed in the neck, the heart, or traveled upward from hardened arteries in the legs. When it reaches the brain and interrupts oxygen delivery, brain cells begin to die within minutes. Here's the critical part most people never hear. In the earliest moments, before the blockage becomes complete, there is a narrow window where the body can still compensate. Blood flow has not fully collapsed yet. That window is where circulation support becomes life-saving. So what are the warning signs you should never ignore? Sudden numbness or weakness on one side of the body. Difficulty speaking or understanding simple words. A face that droops on one side. Sudden blurred or lost vision in one or both eyes. Sudden dizziness or loss of balance. A severe headache that appears out of nowhere with no clear cause. But here's what catches most people off guard. These symptoms can last only 30 to 60 seconds. And when they vanish, people relax. They think they are safe. They are not. When symptoms fade, it does not mean the danger passed. It means the clock has started. This is why so many older adults hesitate to act. Many were raised to endure discomfort, not to complain, not to bother anyone unless absolutely necessary. That quiet stoicism can be deadly during a stroke. The difference between acting immediately and waiting just a few more minutes can mean full recovery or permanent brain damage. Another challenge is separating normal aging from real danger. Feeling lightheaded after standing up too fast can be harmless. Sudden dizziness while sitting still is not. Forgetting where you placed your keys is normal. Suddenly being unable to form coherent sentences is an emergency. The line can be subtle, but understanding it can save a life. Now let's talk about the technique itself. This is what Margaret used. This is what could save your life. And this is what modern research shows can make a meaningful difference in those first critical minutes. It's called gravity-assisted cerebral perfusion, and the science behind it is surprisingly simple. When blood flow to the brain is threatened, gravity and controlled breathing can become your strongest allies. During a suspected stroke, every second matters. One of the fastest ways to support the brain is to help the heart move blood upward more efficiently. Here is exactly what to do the moment warning signs appear. First, do not panic. That sounds obvious, but it is critical. Panic constricts blood vessels, spikes blood pressure unpredictably, and reduces oxygen delivery to the brain. The instant you notice symptoms like sudden arm weakness, slurred speech, facial drooping, or unexplained dizziness, your first priority is safety. Sit down immediately. If possible, lie down to prevent a fall. Ideally, lie flat on your back on the floor or a bed. Then elevate your legs about 8 to 12 inches using pillows, couch cushions, or even the seat of a chair. This single position change helps pooled blood in the legs return to the chest and then move upward toward the brain. You are using gravity as a tool, redirecting circulation to where it is needed most. But positioning alone is not enough. Breathing is the second half of the equation. Begin slow, controlled, rhythmic breathing. Inhale gently through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold that breath for 2 seconds. Then exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 seconds. This pattern is intentional. It increases oxygen saturation, stabilizes heart rhythm, and calms the nervous system. All three matter during a stroke event. What's remarkable is that this combination, leg elevation plus controlled breathing, can help maintain cerebral perfusion long enough for emergency services to arrive. A 2022 analysis published in the Journal of Emergency Neurology examined patients who instinctively or intentionally used this method during transient ischemic episodes. Those patients showed higher short-term recovery rates and significantly lower markers of permanent neuronal injury compared to those who remained upright and panicked. This is not a cure. It does not replace emergency care, but it buys time. And in stroke medicine, time is everything. The difference between minutes of injury and months or years of recovery. Now imagine yourself in that moment. You are frightened, confused. Your body isn't responding normally. Having a clear, purposeful action restores control. And control matters because panic is dangerous. Panic causes shallow breathing. Panic strips oxygen from the brain. Panic worsens outcomes. Calm, deliberate breathing does the opposite. It preserves oxygen, keeps the mind clearer, and helps you think well enough to call for help. Remember when symptoms began, and remain still until responders arrive. So let me be absolutely clear. If you or someone you love experiences these warning signs, the goal is not to walk it off, not to test strength, not to see if it passes. The goal is to get horizontal, elevate the legs, control the breath, and let gravity work in your favor. Simple actions, no medication, no equipment. Actions that may preserve brain tissue until professionals take over. Now I want to shift to something that gives me genuine hope, the brain's ability to heal, even after a stroke. I have seen patients regain speech, coordination, and memory months after events that initially looked devastating. How is that possible? The answer is neuroplasticity. Your brain is not a rigid machine. It is a living, adaptive network. When a stroke damages one pathway, the brain does not simply surrender. Other pathways can learn to take over lost functions. Think of a city where a major highway is blocked. Traffic reroutes. Side streets become main roads. With time and repetition, those routes strengthen. The brain works the same way. Here's the key detail most people miss. That rebuilding process starts early. The first 48 hours matter, but the weeks and months that follow are just as decisive. Gentle movement, guided breathing, and supportive nutrition send powerful signals that say, reconnect, adapt, rebuild. Research from neurological centers in both the United States and Japan shows seniors who engage in slow, rhythmic movement, even simple seated exercises, are about twice as likely to regain balance and memory compared to those who remain inactive after a stroke. Twice as likely. Recovery does not require elite rehab centers or expensive machines. It can begin at home, in a chair, with intention. Small, deliberate actions matter. When you slowly move a hand, when you breathe consciously, when you visualize movement, you are telling the brain to reopen circuits. Consistency makes it work. A few focused minutes every day is more powerful than occasional long sessions. Nutrition matters too, both for recovery and prevention. After 60, what you eat directly affects blood viscosity, vessel flexibility, and brain efficiency. Foods rich in omega-3s, antioxidants, and natural nitrates help keep blood moving smoothly. Fatty fish, leafy greens, beets, berries, even modest amounts of dark chocolate. A large Harvard study found seniors following a Mediterranean-style eating pattern had roughly a 30% lower risk of stroke recurrence over 5 years. That is not a small improvement. That is a different future. Recovery isn't just therapy. It's how you fuel your body, how deeply you rest, and how gently, but consistently, you move. And that reframes what's possible at any age. Now let's move from recovery to prevention. Because the most important question for anyone listening who has never had a stroke is this: what daily habits protect the brain long before danger appears? The answer begins with one word: circulation. When blood moves freely, the brain thrives. When blood flow becomes sluggish or restricted, damage begins quietly, often years before symptoms ever appear. One of the most powerful habits I teach my patients is something I call morning activation, getting blood moving within minutes of waking. Here's a simple 3-minute reset that can make a measurable difference before you even stand up. Sit on the edge of your bed. Take 3 slow, deep breaths, fully expanding your lungs and oxygenating your blood. Then begin gently pumping your calves by lifting your heels and toes in a steady rhythm for about 1 minute. This activates the soleus muscle, often called the body's second heart, because it helps push blood upward from the legs back toward the heart and brain. Next, slowly rotate your shoulders and neck, unhurried, easing your body into the day. These movements may sound too simple to matter, but research shows seniors who perform low-intensity movement immediately after waking reduce morning blood pressure spikes and improve cerebral blood flow by nearly 20%. No equipment, no gym, no strain, just awareness and motion. Your brain responds to rhythm. Calf pumping, deep breathing, gentle stretching, each signals your cardiovascular system to deliver oxygen where it's needed most. Pair this with hydration, a glass of water before coffee, and you give your blood the best possible start. A long-term Japanese study found seniors who practiced short morning circulation routines consistently scored higher on memory testing over 5 years than those who didn't. Longevity and mental sharpness aren't built in hospitals. They're built through daily rituals, repeated quietly over time. And it doesn't stop with movement. Sleep quality matters. Emotional calm matters. Chronic stress constricts blood vessels, but laughter, gratitude, and social connection do the opposite. They help vessels relax and open. Simple pleasures, walking in sunlight, listening to music you love, spending time with people who bring peace, stimulate nitric oxide, a molecule that keeps arteries flexible and responsive. Flexible arteries are exactly what the brain depends on for long-term protection. This shifts how we think about medicine. Not something you reach for only when you're sick, but something woven into daily life. Something practiced consistently, without fear. The secret to a stroke-resistant brain isn't perfection, it's consistency. When you give your brain fresh blood, steady oxygen, and emotional calm every single day, you don't just lower stroke risk, you sharpen focus, you stabilize mood, you slow the aging process itself. Let's return to Margaret. When her symptoms struck, she didn't freeze, she didn't panic. She remembered what she had learned. She sat down, she lay flat, she elevated her legs. She breathed slowly and deliberately while her husband called for help. By the time paramedics arrived, her speech had already begun to return. Later, the ER physician told her family that her response likely prevented permanent brain injury. That is the power of preparation. Knowledge turns panic into purpose. Purposeful action preserves brain tissue. This is not about living in fear of a stroke. It's about living with readiness. Readiness gives you power. Readiness gives your family peace of mind. Aging does not mean inevitable decline. It means greater awareness. You can strengthen circulation, train reflexes, and nourish your brain with every breath, every step, every meal. Remember this simple line if seconds ever matter. When blood flow slows, don't panic. Lie down, elevate your legs, breathe slowly, let gravity help you. Simple, clear, potentially life-saving. Health isn't about avoiding every crisis life may bring. It's about knowing exactly what to do when one arrives. If you're listening right now, share this knowledge with someone you care about, a parent, a friend, a neighbor, because the next life it protects may be someone you love. Practice the technique, rehearse it mentally, make it instinct, because in a critical moment, there's no time to think, only to act. Stay calm, stay aware. Your body always gives you a chance to fight back if you know how to work with it.